My great hope for cryptocurrency technology is that we stop talking about blockchain and Bitcoin and all of these things. We no longer talk about TCP/IP in the general public. In the early days of the internet, the only people who used it were very sophisticated, very technical people, and they were capable of doing so much. And that was because the internet could do so little, and they had to carry the load for them. So things like TCP/IP and these ideas, they kind of faded into the backdrop. They're necessary, they're useful. Technologists iterate and evolve and build things on top of them. But at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't care. The consumer looks at things like, does my Skype work or not? Am I having a good high quality call, or is it crackly and there's high latency or something like that? If we can achieve the same thing we've achieved with the internet, that it just works and it just works well, but do that for money, then I think we can have some really magical, revolutionary things. For example, I believe we'll have this idea of a universal wallet. Just recently, I was actually on a trip throughout Europe. I was in Ukraine, I was in Greece, I was in Switzerland, and I was in London, in England. And all these countries have one thing in common, which is they have different money. So Ukraine's money is different than the euro, which is Greece's money, is different from the franc, which is Switzerland's money, which is the pound, which is England's money. But I never once used a currency exchange, and I never once used the local money. I had my card, and every time I bought something, that card would go from US dollars to the local currency. So I actually didn't care what the local currency was. I just had to kind of in the back of my mind track what am I spending. So could you imagine a future where all of your assets live in a wallet, a digital wallet, where you have some tokenized gold and tokenized stock, but even more exotic things like tokenized airline miles? Or maybe you tokenize your house and sell part of it. It's like a reverse mortgage and you have some tokens in there. Maybe you pre-sell your labor and you put it there. And then when you go into Starbucks or to McDonald's or any of these places, they always will charge, let's say, in dollars. So when you go and tap your cell phone to pay, you're going to pay in airline miles or your labor or your house, and they get dollars. They didn't know that you paid in airline miles. That's some decentralized market-making network took care of all that process. Now, if we can get to that reality, we start caring a lot less about our local money. It doesn't really matter if you live in Argentina and the peso is not doing so good, because you can just rebalance your portfolio and say, I'm actually pretty long on the dollar. I'm just going to go for that. Or I like gold, so I'm going to store all my wealth there. So now what we've done is we have taken a person where their financial life is determined by geography, and we've now put them in the driver's seat of their financial life. They get to make the final say about their portfolio and how they store their assets. And by the way, every single one of these assets are going to be secure, they're going to be well accounted for, they're going to be free of fraud or a lot more resistant to fraud. They're going to move at the speed of light. You're going to be able to buy and sell them at a fair price. And there's no longer a siloing effect that occurs where your equities live here and your bonds live here and your currencies live there and your commodities live there. They're all just treated as the same under the same type of protocol, and they flow just as fast as email. If we can accomplish that by 2030, I think that the cryptocurrencies will have become the greatest innovation of the last 500 to 1,000 years since the invention of banking and the invention of the printing press. And that'd just be an amazing future to live in.